I am live. Oh, I am live. Hi, everybody. Listen, thank you for joining me on this rainy Sunday evening. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get things cooking in just one sec. But while we're cooking, I'm just going to play this little thing while people jump on. Don't go anywhere, okay? We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday daytime live stream. You know what? I always want to live stream, but I can never pick a good day. And Sundays can be a good day by the time I get everything done. I was thinking, Sunday, 6 o'clock, and I could call this show the Sunday Night Sex Show or whatever. Do you remember this lady had a show called the Sunday Night Sex Show? I'm not talking about sex. Does anybody remember that lady? So I thought, well, maybe I could call this the Sunday Night Sex Show. However, I'm doing this at 5 o'clock. I'm doing this at 5 o'clock because I wanted to bring in a very special guest who's standing by. It is Shadoe Davis. So hang on to your hats for that. But we're going to talk about a few things that have happened over the weekend. Well, this little sneaky Carney finally called the election, right? So this is what he said. This is Carney today. I have asked the Governor General to dissolve Parliament and to call a federal election on April 28th. We need to build, these are his words, the strongest economy in the G7. We need to deal with President Trump's tariffs. Canadians deserve a choice about who should lead that effort for our country. We didn't actually get a choice to have you. Now, did we? Right? Now, I got to say, this guy, Carney, he's got to be the luckiest politician ever. I mean, he happens to come in as JT's leaving, Trudeau's leaving. He has no seat, no riding really, never been a politician, never worked in politics, and he's not elected. But somehow he's just noodled his way in. And I want to talk about this a little bit from Canadian perspective. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring in than Mr. Shadoe Davis. Shadoe Davis.
Hello, Anita. Hello. How are you?
We're exhausted.
Sue Johansson, by the way. Her name is Sue Johansson.
Sunday Night Sex Show, which is a fantastic show because looking at that woman, you wouldn't think she knew anything about sex, but she did.
Well, she was older, but I'm sure she had experiences in her younger years, I guess. I don't know.
She did. Oh, she knew everything. And that was a fantastic show. I love a good call-in show. As a radio broadcaster, you probably, that's your thing.
Yeah, well, back it's funny you should bring that up because I was working at a rock station back then, and the Sunday night thing, it was on at, I think, 10 o'clock our time or something, and I was at the station that ran it. And I remember, having to say, because, they give you liners, right? Like when you're on the air, you have to talk about what the station does on weekends or whatever contests you're running. And so don't forget Sunday Night Sex Show with Sue Johansson, to be like, some 75-year-old woman's going to come on and talk to you about sex.
Yeah.
We're going to stop. And this was a rock station, Anita. We're going to stop the music. We're going to stop playing Guns N' Roses and the Rolling Stones and Van Halen and all your favorite rock and roll. We're going to pause that for an hour so this old lady can come on and talk to you about sex. And then we'll come back with all of your favorite tunes after it's over.
But it was so bizarre. It was so perfect. And I bet you if we did a little clip show together and walked down memory lane and clip some of her best moments, that would be a good show. Right?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Sunday Night Sex Show. But tonight, for our purposes, I'm going to think in the future, I'm going to call this the Sunday Night Sex Show, although I'm doing it at 5, and I don't know what time I'm going to do this in the future. But Sunday nights is a good night. Okay. So
I'm glad you explained that for us. Thank you.
Oh God. Okay, everybody. Listen, there's so much to talk about, but where to start, right? Where to start? Let's start with Carney and some of the latest developments that have happened. Do you feel that regular Canadians, like the regular people, know about this guy, know enough about this guy to make a proper decision come April 28th?
I don't even know where he lives, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I mean, does he live in? He's going to be running in Nepean, we understand, because that was announced today.
Yeah.
And that's Chandra Arya's seat. And
Yeah.
Chandra Arya was booted for whatever reason by the Liberals during the leadership. What did they say? Foreign interference or something?
Yeah, well, they haven't really pinned something on him, so we would like, yeah, we can get, that was the whole thing. They don't clarify in that letter what exactly they've disqualified him for, and it's very, very cold, very cold. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and so he was the MP, the Liberal MP for that area for 9 years, I believe. And
Yeah,
then they
I think so. Actually, because we brought this up now, let's just go for it now. This is Chandra Arya's letter. I have been informed by the Liberal Party that my nomination as the candidate for the upcoming federal election in Nepean has been revoked. While this news is deeply disappointing, it does not diminish the profound honor and privilege it has been to serve the people of Nepean, et cetera, et cetera. So why I asked Chandra for an interview a long time ago, but they didn't get back to me. But why this guy needs to be more vocal. Essentially, Carney has just snatched this away from him. If regular people don't realize this is a big problem. But the problem is mainstream doesn't talk about this, do they?
Well, I heard Brian Lilly talking about, or was it Warren Kinsella? It was on Batra's Burning Questions on Sun TV today, or whatever it's called, Toronto Sun. And so those three were on talking about it. And I think Kinsella said, Mark Carney is the luckiest man in politics. He just happens to parachute in at the very time where Justin Trudeau does. Look, this was all predetermined, in my opinion. I can't prove it, obviously, but Mark Carney has been Justin Trudeau's advisor, financial advisor, since 2020. This we know, right?
Yeah.
So he's been involved actively in all financial decisions that have been made, and they've been disastrous, the Liberal government, for the past 5 years. This we know as well. So it has also been speculated by the left-wing corporate media for the last couple of years that Mark Carney was going to join the Liberal Party in some way, that Trudeau was going to offer him the Minister of Finance position. Back in the summer, I think, last year, he was going to fire, what's her name, Chrystia Freeland, and put Carney in his place. And Carney said, no, we're not doing that. And then a few months later, when Freeland was supposed to drop the fall economic update, which was not until, December?
Yeah.
Then she said, I can't do this. I can't talk about this GST break that you want to do. And there was something else in there as well, because it's ridiculous. So I'm quitting. And that left the Liberals in a lurch, and all of a sudden the media started to swirl around them like sharks, and then the polls started going down. I think they lost another election in Montreal right around then as well, in a Liberal safe riding. So they quickly came to understand, the Liberals did, and this mutiny that they had, all of these backbenchers and the private caucus meetings, talking about Trudeau having to leave. All of this has been engineered by the Liberal Party. And then when Trudeau resigned on January the 6th, or said it was his intention to resign as prime minister and prorogue Parliament to benefit the Liberal Party, even though we were in the midst of Donald Trump and his tariff threats.
Yeah.
We knew that there was something going on. This just didn't happen random. This has definitely been, and look what happened during the Liberal leadership contest. I mean, those two debates were ridiculous. There was no real.
But if this has been prepared, that's really worrying. The baton has been passed. It's set up. And the whole problem is, do the normal people see this? That's the worry that we have. And I'm hoping that independent media has broken through enough to break through that, so that normal people can actually see. This hinges on those progressive Caucasian women that love him, that love this net zero agenda. I mean, Global News just did a story the other day, or was it today on Global National? Hey, we're going to get rid of, we want all EVs by 2030. Well, it's friggin' 2025. You want me to drive around in an EV? I don't think so. You psychopaths. They're absolutely psychotic with oil and gas.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Danielle Smith, a couple of weeks ago, gave a speech, and I think you probably got that for air later on.
Yeah.
And she said that if they go ahead with this production cap, which essentially amounts to 35,000 jobs being lost by 2030, 2035, I think it is. Alberta is going to fight back on this. And she said she had this conversation with Carney face to face a couple of days ago when Carney was in Edmonton skating with the Oilers. And missing an open net. I mean, like, what kind of a stupid publicity stunt? That was terrible. I couldn't. And then the Mike Myers thing. But
but the fact that they released that footage, I mean, fake it till you make it. Let him keep doing it. And then, can you believe that his handlers do not, they sent that footage out, that footage circulated? If you had smart handlers, they would cut that out and get him just shooting the net. And they, as many takes as it could to make it look like he scored.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Okay, you're a journalist, so I know you look at this through a journalist
side. I'm an
side.
accidental journalist. You
were in this business for a very long time.
I was in this business for a long time, but yeah.
And you look at things through a journalist's eyes. What do you see, especially in the past, since he's been prime minister? What have you seen out of Mark Carney? Is it believable to you, or do you see right through it immediately?
I mean, I see right through him immediately, but I also wonder, again, with all that money, I tried to look up his net worth and I got two different figures. I got one figure that was 6.97 million, which doesn't seem that high. So I don't think that one is right. And then I looked up another thing that said 9.6 billion, which seems utterly ridiculous. So I don't know which is right. But with all that money and with all the people around him, nobody's briefed him on how to talk to the press.
No.
Nobody has briefed him to say, Carney, don't get twitchy. You know that, you're going to be asked these questions. Don't get your back up. You're here as somebody for the people. So why have his handlers not briefed him properly on that? This is such basic stuff.
Well, it's...
and maybe that's good for us because we can then see through him.
You see, I'm not sure. The reason I asked you that question, first of all, is to ask you if you see right through him immediately, and you do. As journalists, we do. I'm not sure if the average Canadian does, but when it comes to the way he handles these left-wing reporters, and let's be honest, I mean, Rosie Barton, he asked her to look inside of herself the other day. You come at this question from a place of combativeness, and I'm like, what? That's Rosie Barton, dude. She's your biggest fan.
Exactly, Rosie Barton from the CBC. When the CBC literally carries water for Carney, literally, they will tell Ruby Dalla to her face on live CBC television, "You've been disqualified," and expect her to just take it. I found that absolutely abusive, and I would like to publicly call out David Cochrane and the whole control room staff at CBC who did that to her. That is cruel and diabolical, I would say.
Absolutely terrible and unprofessional. You're right. Completely.
And I could have been someone in the control room working on that. And I think I would have stood up and not done it. I don't know what I would have done, but that was diabolical because I know how all that stuff works. Anyway, he doesn't get briefed properly because press conference after press conference, whether he's up north or in Edmonton, or that one time he let the Western Standard people in and they didn't want to be there. And they legitimately asked him a proper question. What was the question?
The question was, are you going to pay the people back for the wide-body jet trip you took to Europe for at least $500,000? Then Carney says, well, that's an interesting question. And then he started trying to spin it into something else. And at the end of it, the Western Standard reporter said, so I'll take that as a no then. And Carney said, no, you'll take it as a comprehensive answer to your question, with this arrogant, smug look on his face. I know. He said also in that answer, or maybe it was to the Globe and Mail reporter, I'm having a rough time remembering. that he came to like it was his job to come off the top of Mount Olympus and come to Canada's rescue when we need him the most. I gave up a job in the private industry realm. I came to help. Like you're the only one who could ever save us.
Which I also don't buy. He's almost like, Canada, you owe me. Okay, and first of all, I'll talk about that more, but I first of all can't believe they let the Western Standard in. They did, and that did not go well for him, but also he should be briefed, right? To be like, okay, you're going to get these questions, these combative questions. That's the name of the game. And think of all Pierre, all the questions, all David Aiken, somebody I used to work with, hammering him and badgering him and being combative all these years. And he's had to put up with it and put up with it. Carney can't even handle 3 press conferences, right? He loses it and he's completely...
David Aiken, that's right. I played that clip the other night. Poilievre's first day on the job as leader of the Conservative Party. And Aiken, before Poilievre even began his remarks, Aiken started shouting at him from the gallery. Like,
I know.
How unprofessional is that? And Aiken should have known better. He's a veteran journalist, and he should have known not to act that way. But anyway, so when you say the handlers, or how can Carney not listen to the handlers, or maybe the handlers aren't doing a good enough job with it. You're basically asking somebody at that stage, I think, to change their personality. And Carney just doesn't have the experience to be able to, like the performative experience to be able to go on in front of cameras, microphones, all of those journalists hanging around, probably knowing that thousands, even millions of people are going to be watching, what comes out of his mouth. I don't believe that he has the chops. And
I don't think so. He doesn't have the temperament. Now, you could take someone else and they might have the temperament, but he just doesn't have that temperament. And all the press that he's dealt with before for all his financial things have probably been very, have asked him probably softball questions all the whole time. So he's like, what is this? A difficult question? He doesn't understand that. But you would think with all the people around him advising him, whoever these people are, they obviously don't know what they're doing. And maybe that's good because then we can see the real him.
Well,
also, can I ask you? Okay, go ahead.
No, I think the people advising him are Gerald Butts and who was Trudeau's chief of Katie Telford. Those are 2 savvy, cutthroat political operatives, and they know what they're doing. Sadly,
they should, but there's someone's letting him down somewhere.
Well,
someone is letting him down.
It's Carney himself. He can't help. He can't get out of his own way, and I think that over the next month, and the reason that this election is going to be in the shortest amount of time allowed. Because I think in Canadian law that once an election is called, it has to be held between 37 and 50 days. So this is 37 days. This is the bare minimum. Carney wants to get that election done quickly so he does not have to face the press. He doesn't have to face the public, that he can skate through this. I think what he's going to try doing is, or at least what his handlers are going to try doing, is the same thing that Joe Biden did in 2020, which was avoid the media at all costs, maybe do one thing per day, answer 3 very controlled questions, and then get on with your business. That's going to be it, right? They're going to hide him. They're going to shield him from the media. And they're certainly not going to let independent media in, that's for sure. Like, so you're right. When you say Western Standard, like, how did that even happen, right? Yeah,
I don't even know how that happened. Okay, I'll save this question for after, but I wanted to just say, I found this article from 2020 to January 2025. Carney chaired Brookfield, funneling $18 billion into China's green energy solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries. And then it goes on to talk about a 2024 anti-slavery international report links 45% of key solar component to Xinjiang's forced labor camps where Uyghur Muslims endure Beijing's oppression, and it goes on to talk about how 276 million Bank of China loan in 2024 for Shanghai properties. So Carney is deeply tied to a regime we're supposed to condemn. Did he act to stop it? There's no evidence he did. And then also his whole net zero crusade, right? He is just targeting our oil and gas sector, which is a huge problem costing all of us jobs. Now, some people think Danielle Smith is very anti-Canadian by criticizing Carney for this. But let's just take a look at this clip and see what we think.
So extremist former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault is still in cabinet. But that shouldn't surprise any of us, given that the new Prime Minister is a whole new level of climate zealot and eco-extremist. From his decades-long push for net zero banking that sought to make it impossible for banks to invest in oil and gas, to his promise now to massively increase carbon taxes on our industry, make no mistake, he wants to eviscerate our oil and gas industry. It's right in his book. In Canada, our national identity, unity, our freedom, and our future are at a monumental crossroads. It is likely that soon Canadians will be headed to the ballot box to be able to vote in the most pivotal federal election that we have had in our lifetimes.
No kidding. And I hope we vote right. It says, it also goes on to say in this article, the parliamentary budget officer projects 54,000 job losses and 21 billion in annual GDP cuts. Our GDP isn't doing that well as it is, which could devastate Alberta and Saskatchewan. What is up with his net zero fanaticism? Can you make any sense of that?
Yes, it's in his book, as Danielle pointed out in that speech. The book is called Values, and especially the first couple of chapters and the last couple of chapters, where he is talking about the world needing to get to net zero carbon emissions or the planet will die. It's that simple. He says the science is settled. That's all there is to it. So when Danielle had this conversation face to face with Carney the other day, Thursday or Friday or whatever it was, she laid down the ground rules of what she was willing to accept from any new prime minister. And, it was all about getting rid of this net zero garbage. Now, I don't know what Carney's reaction to that was. She didn't make it public. He hasn't been asked, at least not that I know of. But you can bet that if Liberals are elected again, they're going to come back with the same nonsense, even though Mark Carney has said, well, I'm cutting the carbon tax for gasoline and whatnot.
Carbon tax.
He's going to leave it in place for industries, but it's going to be worse because A, there won't be a rebate at all. And secondly, anybody who wants to sell products into Canada will have to go through carbon tariffs. That's what his plan is. Yeah. So can you imagine? I mean, we do 70% of our business with the United States because that's how the Liberals rigged it in the past 10 years with canceling all the pipelines and whatnot, which, by the way, Carney was also in favor of. And Poilievre asked him this in committee a few years ago. That's made us completely and totally dependent on the United States as the only customer for oil and gas. Right. So that's the only country that we can sell to because we cannot get that product to Tidewater, as they call it, because of the no new pipelines bill and then the tanker ban off the coast of British Columbia. So we can't move the energy west to east. We can't move the energy east to west. It goes to the United States. And, the other thing about that is the energy that Ontario and Quebec does get from Alberta, and they do get natural gas and some oil from Alberta, has to go through the United States through a shared pipeline circuit. So with all of these threats that these premiers like Doug Ford are making to the United States, if Donald Trump says, you know what, I think maybe I'll just break our pipeline deal and anything that you're sending to Ontario and Quebec is not going to get there. Let's see how you manage with that. I mean, there's so much to unpack here, Anita, but the bottom line is that Carney is not changing his zealotry. He's not changing his net zero ideology.
And he's putting up a facade that he is.
Yeah.
He's putting up this facade because even my kid he asked me, he's like, oh, this new guy, he cut the carbon tax. Mom, like, what do you think about that? And then I told him the big long answer. You know what he said at the end? He goes, I'm sorry I asked. He was like, I'm sorry I asked. But he was just like, because he doesn't follow anything I do, but he's just like, what's the big deal? So the dude cut it so good. So it makes them look good. And what these zealots don't realize is that you need carbon in the atmosphere. Who doesn't know that?
This is the other thing. I mean, but the example you bring up there is good, right? You're talking to your kid, and your kid says, "Mom, Carney just cut the carbon tax. Holy crap!" Okay, so the average Canadian sees that same way your kid does, and so The only way to argue against that is to give that big, long answer. Do you think Canadians have got the patience to listen, even if it's only for 30 seconds, a 30-second elevator speech about how he didn't do it? He can't cancel the carbon tax because there's no parliament, first of all, right? And secondly, he's only just reduced that order in council that he signed, which is all BS. It was just a show. It's nothing. The orders in council need to be signed by the Governor General, for starters, right? So that's another big charade, a lie that he's selling to Canadians. But you have to tell Canadians, no, he didn't. He just reduced the price of the carbon tax during the election campaign. You can bet that if Carney gets a mandate from Canadians on April 28th, it's going to go right back in. Or some new version of the carbon tax is going to come right back in, and you're going to be paying more. Period.
It'll be an industrial tax. Actually, he was asked about that. I do have this response. Anytime I listen to Carney talk, it is like watching paint dry, but it is a minute 15 long. I see there's also lots of comments, which hang on, because I want to put up. I always love hearing from the people, so I will put the comments up at the end. But let's listen to Carney's response to Danielle.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carney. Christopher Nardi from the National Post. So Alberta Premier Danielle Smith recently said that she had asked the United States administration to pause their tariffs during the federal election because they were benefiting Liberals in the polls and hurting Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre. What is your response to those comments, and will you be able to work with the Premier in light of that revelation?
Well, my responsibility is to work with all Canadians, with all stakeholders, certainly with the premiers, with national Indigenous organizations, with Labour, with other stakeholders, with everyone. So that's my responsibility. I take that seriously. With respect to the premier's comments, I take note of her alignment of Monsieur Poilievre with Mr. Trump. And would note that that's one of the decisions that Canadians will have to make, whether they want a government that is unifying, that's standing up for Canada, and is taking focused action to build a better economy, or they want division and Americanism. And that's what Mr. Poilievre seems to be offering, and just endorsed by the Premier of Alberta.
On that note, can you believe how anti-American we've all become? Like, a lot of Canadians have become canceling their spring break vacations, not booking hotels, not shopping. It's ruining American business. Canadian business is not doing well because of our stupid premier here, David Eby, pulling the liquor off the shelves and doing this, that, and the whatever liquor that we've already paid for. And businesses can't sell it. You can't have a Jack and Coke. You can't have an old fashioned with Kentucky bourbon. This is an issue for me because I like that. But it's like so stupid, and businesses are closing. Yet I really hope that, oh gosh, I hope people don't think that he's the one that's going to fix this.
Well, all right. So he lied. Carney lied in that statement that you played when he starts talking about this so-called alignment that Poilievre has with Trump, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the Liberals want Canadians to believe. And once again, there's a lot of low information voters out there, to use a Trumpism, or low information people that don't know. So any lie that you tell them, depending on what their, political tendencies are, they'll believe. And Mark Carney comes out of nowhere, starts telling lies. And, Trump himself said last week a couple of times, he said, I don't know who this conservative guy is up there. He never mentions him by name. He just said he's stupidly not a friend of mine. He's not a MAGA guy, right? So, a lot of people took that as a tacit endorsement of Trump for Mark Carney because he said he'd do better with Liberals. It wasn't anything like that. It just basically said that Trump doesn't care. And he said, I don't care who wins up there. I do better with Liberals negotiating, but I don't care who wins up there. That's what he said. Pierre Poilievre was asked, I think it was this morning during his press conference to kick off the election campaign, how do you feel? Do you respect President Trump? And Poilievre said, well, I respect the office of the President of the United States. And then he kind of tiptoed away from the rest of the question regarding his personal feelings about Donald Trump. So, and again, he's never met Donald Trump, to my knowledge. So how can you have an opinion of a man or a woman that you've never met before? You can't. All you can do is go off what you've seen on television or online. And that sometimes is a mistake because you're only getting one side of the equation. Better to ask Danielle Smith. She's met him.
Yeah. Yeah.
She understands who he
I
is.
thought when I heard that I thought Trump was using a bit of reverse psychology in a way, like, okay, put in the liberal, fine, I'll deal with the liberal, okay, whatever. And in a way that, I don't know.
I truly believe that Trump doesn't care.
I believe that's what I believe. He doesn't give a hoot. He
No.
sees us as such a giant nothing burger with a shitty GDP. With we don't pay the amount we're supposed to pay for NATO, whatever that is, 1.3 billion or so. I don't know. There's some
2 billion,
NATO amount.
2%.
Oh, okay. And that
2% of GDP, and our GDP sucks. So you're right.
We're not pulling our weight with our NATO protection. We're sandwiched up against the US, so we think Big Brother is going to protect us. Big Brother meaning the big US, right? Like and maybe without even spending a penny, I feel like Trump has shaken us up. Now we're all buy Canadian. Oh, interprovincial trade. Oh, let's all the premiers meet. Now we're thinking about things that we weren't thinking about. Now we're thinking about border protection. He did that by not spending a penny. He did that.
I love how colorful you are. I just love it. I think it's great. I'll tell you another thing.
And I'll let you that, I mean, and you know, the Trump TDS and the hatred amongst people I work with is insane. The people being nervous to drive their Teslas. Well, now they're really nervous because of all these boneheads out there, not knowing even what they stand for, trying to burn down Tesla factories or whatever. But before we move on, Pierre, this is a little clip of Pierre responding to what we just talked about with Danielle and Carney.
Premier Danielle Smith, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, has asked the U.S. administration to hold off any further action because it benefits the Liberals politically right now, and says that your direction would be more in sync with the U.S. administration's direction. Do you think her comments are appropriate, and what is your response to them?
Well, my response is that the president has said that he thinks it would be easier to deal with a Liberal, and with good reason. The Liberals have weakened our country. They've blocked resource projects, raised taxes, driving our jobs south into the hands of the Americans. $500 billion of investment has fled our country. They blocked a pipeline that would have allowed us to go around the American market. They've killed LNG liquefaction plants, forcing us to sell all of our natural gas to the Americans at huge price discounts. They've weakened our military and our borders. All of that plays into the hands of President Trump. He's been very blunt that he wants a weak Canada that he can target. And Liberals, after the lost Liberal decade, have made our economy and our country weaker and more divided, just like Trump wanted. Electing Liberals to a fourth term will weaken our country still. That is why we need to put Canada first for a change, with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, unleash our resource production, build pipelines, secure our border, rebuild our armed forces, and stand up to Donald Trump from a position of strength. Thank you.
Right. And you know, there are a lot of people that sometimes are like, oh, Pierre he's just as bad as the rest of them. And, oh, I don't like this guy and I don't like this guy. So then what do you have? Nothing?
Poilievre's in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't stand up to Trump, then he looks like a weakling. If he tries to tie himself with Trump and say, I'm the best guy for the job, and he goes down there and he meets him, which would be completely improper considering he's only the leader of the opposition. He's not the prime minister. He's not a premier. He's nothing really. He's just the leader of the opposition. That would look presumptuous to a lot of people. Like he figures he's going to win, so he should just go and get the ball rolling now. But the biggest thing, Anita, and everybody watching, what we need to understand is that this whole elbows up thing, this whole counter tariff thing.
Yeah.
First of all, these are the same people who were, out there wearing masks 3 years ago because they didn't want a little germ to get them with a recovery rate of 99.9%. They just were scared, right? So now these people are ready to go to war with the United States. And there was an article the other day, Rupa Subramanya posted it. She said these people, and I think she talked to a dozen people in the Ottawa area, were actually ex-military, were actually willing to fight the United States militarily. And I thought, that's funny. But economically, our GDP as of 2023, these are the latest numbers that we could find. Canada's GDP is $2.142 trillion US. Okay, so that's a pretty big number. That's a top 10 number in the world, right? 2.142 trillion. It's not what it could be, but that's what it is. The United States, by comparison, which still has the number one economy in the world, regardless of what everybody thinks about China, is $27.72 trillion. Their economy is over 10 times the size of ours. So if any Canadian politician is actually serious when they say, we're going to fight back, dollar for dollar, and Trudeau, before he left, was talking about $150 billion worth of trade we're going to start tariffing on the United States. That is a significant percentage of the Canadian GDP. That is a mosquito bite for the United States. They wouldn't even feel it. We can't take on the United States economy. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that we can. So what was Trump's ask at the beginning of all this? It was simply
the border, cleaning up the border.
Yeah, right. It was just like, you guys got to fix up the border. There's too much fentanyl coming in here. And then Trudeau lies and says, well, you only got 27 pounds of fentanyl coming in last year. Well, first of all, 27 pounds of fentanyl is enough to kill every single person in British Columbia, for starters, because it's such a dangerous drug. And secondly, how much stuff do they not get? And what about that big, huge fentanyl lab they just busted last week in British Columbia, the biggest drug operation in Canadian history? And how many others are there just like that there? Because all of our ports are controlled by Chinese triad gangs. That is what Trump was trying to clean up. Trump is also fully aware, I'm not sure if you've been following the reporting of Sam Cooper of the Bureau or not, but Sam has been talking about Chinese infiltration into Canada. And it's not just about elections. It's not just about politicians. It's about every single facet of Canadian society. It's about the judges. It's about lawyers. It's about cops. It's about politicians. It's about bureaucrats, powerful ones, highly placed bureaucrats. All of these people working on behalf of China. Who does China work with? They work with the World Economic Forum. They love each other. They have a symbiotic relationship. Carney, that clip that you played a couple of clips ago, he started talking about stakeholders again. Who else uses that word? Who else uses that word, stakeholder?
First word that comes out of his mouth. He doesn't talk about citizens and people. He says stakeholders.
Yeah.
So that shows you where his allegiance lies.
Let me ask you this. Who else uses that word, stakeholder? Stakeholder capitalism.
Does it come?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fourth industrial revolution, right? That is what Mark Carney is, tied in with the Chinese social credit system, which they want to bring here through CBDCs. That's exactly what is going on here.
That is right. And that is why he has been plonked and plucked and put in here. And my worry is that when we actually go to the polls, that it won't matter. Like the numbers, I hope nothing gets rigged. And I hope it can be a too big to rig thing. And that's my thing. Like here in this province, David Eby, nobody wanted him. And people, my patients at work, I work in a medical clinic in the day, they were like, how did he get back in? It's not possible. It's not possible. People were exasperated, and yet there he was with all that.
Do you use voting machines in BC?
Yeah, we had those tabulators made by Dominion.
Okay, so that's how they could possibly rig it, and there's still some irregularities being investigated. So here's my thoughts on rigging the federal election. For starters, federal elections are all paper and pencil, right? You cannot. It's not about voting machines. It's about you're writing your X down on a piece of paper.
Will they do that, or are they going to change it?
I have not heard that they're changing it. Right, so This is a paper pencil thing. So you can't rig that. That's almost impossible to rig. Okay. There's going to be a paper trail, right?
Okay, that gives me hope.
So how else could they rig it? They could rig it through social media, right? And when they talk about, oh, the Russian interference and all the Russian bots that are flooding out on X and Facebook and all of the social media platforms. Well, let's not forget about Chinese bots, right? And the Chinese bots are out there, and all you got to do is go on to X and see for yourself. There's all kinds of people who aren't real talking about how amazing Mark Carney is suddenly. Right? Like, who are you, first of all? How do you have
You can't be real.
Like, I'm a doctor, I'm also a philosopher, and I cut grass on the weekends. I mean, that's seriously, when you look at some of these profiles, you know that this person is a bot. And so all of these bots are trying to convince people that the liberals are the way to go. The second thing, and the really important thing here, is the polls. All right, let's look at all the polls. Do we think that Canadians are so stupid that just because the Liberals have got a new leader and we've got this new unelected prime minister, that they have gained 17% or more in the polls to the point where they're now in position to form a majority government when the Conservatives have barely lost any ground at all? I mean, yeah, they've lost a few points, but they've gone from maybe 43% to 38, 39%. So they're saying that the NDP is cratered. The NDP has gone from 20% to 12%. So that's 8 points. And then you take 5 from the Conservatives. That's 13 points. The Liberals were down at 19 or 20%, and now they're at 39 or 40%. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. The math does not work in that situation. If there's only 13 points that have been shed by the other parties, let's add the 13 points to the Liberals and be generous and say they had 22 points. But so that would put them at 35. But they've been shown to be into the 40s. So where are these other
numbers coming from?
Yeah, it's made up. A lot of it is made up, bought and paid for by the Chinese. That is how they're trying to affect the election. Polls, suppression polls, right?
Yes.
It's like a restaurant. You got two great restaurants next to each other. One is filled to the brim. The other one is empty. Which one do you want to go to? You want to go to the one that's full because that's where everybody is. That's where the action is. And so that's what the polls are doing on social media when they publish this new poll. They say, oh, everybody, the Liberals have got momentum. Well, I want to be on the winning team, so I'm going to vote Liberal, right? These people, again, low information. They don't care.
They don't care. And also, if they've always been liberal, they just go liberal. And they go, oh, we needed somebody to refresh the party. Oh, here's the guy, right? It's just like all my family lives in California, and they have always been Democrats. They don't know what to do with themselves. They're just Democrats. No matter how stupid Kamala Harris is or whatever, they cannot think that they could ever mark a ballot for Trump, no matter even if they like him. Literally, my aunt said that. She's like, I have to go Democrat. I've never not gone that. Well, do you like the Democrat? Do you like what they're saying? Doesn't matter. They're lifelong Democrats. But I'm going to play this little clip that we talked about before with Mike Myers. The thing is, I'm so disappointed in Mike Myers, and I think, what are you thinking? Are you not paying attention? Obviously, you live in the States. Obviously, you're missing a few brain chips for somebody that I thought was smart. Or is it just why are the Hollywood people so dumb? Like, people that we thought would be smart have turned out to be so dumb. And while we're talking about Mike Myers, you cannot ignore the influence he's had on Canadian culture, not even Canadian culture, but we all started saying swing because of him. We all started saying, oh, do I make you horny or mojo or
well, it was the whole, remember the not thing? Like, I'm really excited about that. Not. That was a total Wayne's World.
He created a language that became part of our lingo. I mean, that is not a small achievement. And the movies are very, very funny. I mean, he's a little Canadian treasure. And now he's canoodling with Mark Carney. He's going to put his whole career down the toilet if he keeps this nonsense up. Let me see if I can find this and play this. This was just, but you can tell he wrote this because it was quite clever. It was quite adorable. So that's why I think that he wrote it, because why not? Okay, so here we go.
Let's go. Mr. Prime Minister, Mike Myers, what are you doing here? I just thought I'd come up and you live in the States. Yeah, but I'll always be Canadian. But you live in the States.
You live in Europe.
So, do you remember Mr. Dress-Up, the children's show on CBC? What were the names of Mr. Dress-Up's two puppet friends? Casey and Finnegan, Bud the Spud, Howie, Meeker, Capital Saskatchewan, Regina, tragically, Pip, You're a defenseman defending a 2-on-1. What do? Take away the pass, obviously. What are the 2 seasons in Toronto? Winter and construction. Wow. You really are Canadian. Yeah. But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right. Elbows up. Elbows up.
Elbows up. Oh. Oh, Shadoe, why? Why did he do this?
Again, I look at that and go, okay, so fancy bumping into you here, Mike Myers, and just some random bumping into at a random hockey rink. I just happen to be here watching some kids practicing, and there you are, just randomly walking in with your Never 51 Canada team jersey. Mike Myers may have written that. I don't know. You might be right.
I think so, because it's so clever and it's cut so fast the way he would do. I think he had a big hand in it.
It is his style. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
but I think that he was probably paid a pretty handsome sum.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, my God. You think he ain't showing up for free doing that.
And you also
thanks for the check, Carney. Yeah.
Yeah. That Mike Myers is now an American citizen.
Yeah.
Right? He may be from Canada, but he's an American citizen. And I think Unacceptable Fringe, I saw his live stream today, and he was talking about how he played a clip of Mike Myers from not so long ago, boasting about how proud he was to be an American citizen, right?
Oh.
How this is a great country. I love it so much, and yada, da, 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 da. And so now all of a sudden Mike Myers is all up with Mark Carney. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. It smacks of Kamala Harris, don't you think?
It does. It's like a pre-produced thing. But the thing is, Mike Myers is actually talented. So he did do that well. And whoever wrote the script, I think it would have been him, knew enough to tug at our heartstrings by bringing up CBC, Mr. Dress Up, Casey and Finnegan. And even the joke about winter in construction, that's a funny joke. I think he wrote that. And so he got the check. That would have taken him 5 minutes to write because he's super smart. And I don't know if that actually affects Canadians or not. It might for some. It might, because my kids love those movies.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's the thing about that is when you start bringing in the Hollywood types, it didn't work for Kamala, did it?
It didn't work. Oh, friggin' Beyonce and all of them, Megan Thee Stallion, Michelle Obama, Oprah, Meryl Streep, J-Lo. Nobody gave a shit.
This goes back to what I was saying earlier about why. I mean, remember how long they campaign in the United States? I mean, they campaign for like months, years even, right? Because they have their House of Representatives get elected every 2 years, so they call them the midterms. And so it seems like there's always some kind of a campaign going on there. They start campaigning for primaries the year before the election. I mean, it's always a campaign in the United States. So people kind of get used to that whole thing down there. And there's a cycle to it, right? And so I think that the philosophy on when they brought Kamala in was that they brought her in too early. She peaked too early. And when the election came, she just kind of tanked. When she started actually getting seen by people and some of the idiotic answers that she was giving, right? This is why Carney has taken the shortest amount of time that a campaign in Canada can have, because this will shield him from idiot eruptions.
Yeah, yeah, good point. But I hope it doesn't work. I really hope it doesn't work, but it might. I don't know. And one thing I want to ask you about is also, we talked about the Chandra Arya thing. I think that is so dirty. Whatever the reason is, now some people say, well, his son, Siddharth, I think what is his name? His name, Siddhartha? Siddharth Arya. He's like some banker type, and he works for some banking thing that I think is the umbrella is under the Brookfield Asset Management too. So I don't know if they gave his son a job or his son already had the job. I mean, Brookfield is so big, it's not unlikely that a banker wouldn't get a job with one of their companies. So I have to dig into that connection. But his son has a job with the Brookfield Management, blah, 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 the Carney people. And do you think Carney was like, you need to just step aside, Chandra, and I'll be taking that liberal seat. There ain't no way I'm running in Edmonton. I couldn't even score in the net there. And Alberta is so conservative, right? I'll take the Nepean seat, very dirty. So I hope that people see through that.
Well, that's
And-
interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah,
And I
that's
go
fun.
back to the beginning of the show when
Yeah.
you talked about the two different numbers that you got when you were looking for Mark Carney's net
Yeah.
worth. One was in the millions, like 7 to 9 million, and the
Yeah.
other was upwards of 9
9
billion.
billion. Yeah.
Okay. So
Which-
let's remember that Mark Carney was the CEO for 3 years of Brookfield Asset Management. Brookfield Asset Management is massive. And some people call it a mini BlackRock. BlackRock controls something like $12 trillion. So if Brookfield controls 1/3 of that or even 1/4 of that, they're still controlling somewhere in the area of $2.5 trillion, which is bigger than Canada's yearly GDP.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
what kind of money would the CEO of Brookfield Management earn
Right.
for a company that is handling $2.5 trillion? Probably in the billions. And it's so hard for people to wrap their heads around how much money that is because there's so many zeros and it's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Right? But
It
Mark
is.
Carney, I believe he's probably worth in the billions. And Anita, that's why he doesn't, like when he was answering the question from that reporter from the Globe and Mail and then from Rosie Barton last week, when they said, look, you knew what was in the blind trust before you put it in the blind trust. How much
Right.
are you worth? He didn't answer it because he doesn't want people to know how much, money he's got, because heaven forbid he should be a billionaire like, Elon Musk, let's just say.
Yeah.
Right?
And are we supposed to think that this billionaire has given up everything and he loves Canada so much and he's retired, he's resigned from the board of directors from all these companies, given up all this to come because he loves Canada? And he's
No,
doing
he came
this
down
for
from
you.
Mount Olympus to save us from Donald
Save
Trump,
us.
Anita. Remember, that's
Oh,
what his
God.
story was. And I'll tell you something else. And
Yes.
this is something when you say I'm going to look into Alberta more. Danielle Smith was asked by reporters, I'm going to say about a week and a half ago, have you heard anything about Alberta separation from any particular groups? Right? And she said, no, I haven't. Right? The way she answered that question.
Oh.
She knows that there's something going on because I know that there's something going on. There is a very large contingent of unhappy Albertans right now. Some of them with lots of money, not just personally, but also professionally in business and in finance as well, who would suggest to people that if the Liberals somehow do manage to pull off another term in office, that Alberta would start the process of seeking independence. Not
No,
necessarily joining the United States, but seeking independence. And 2 times in the last couple of weeks, Danielle Smith has thrown it out there in that announcement, that address she made at the UCP delegation a couple of weeks ago, and in an interview a couple of months ago where she was sitting on the floor of some hotel room in Florida or in Washington. She talked about a national unity crisis, depending upon the philosophies and the policies of any new prime minister, right? So if she wants to put in these emission caps, or if he, Carney, wants to continue on dealing with Alberta the way that the Liberals have been dealing with Alberta for the past 10 years, there's going to be a national unity crisis. And when she talks about, like, Alberta's sick and tired of paying the freight for the rest of the country, right?
Yeah.
And she talks specifically about the 2 larger provinces who are more than capable of taking care of themselves, that Alberta continues to subsidize to the tune of something like $20 billion every single year. That's enough. So there could be, and again, from the people that I've been speaking to a lot in the last week or so, there could be some kind of a move for Alberta to separate from Canada.
Oh my God, it'll be like the FLQ stuff or the Quebec separatists all over again or whatever. If they, if there's a big lobby to separate, listen, you got to be honest. There's a lot of people across Canada that'll be like, I'm moving to Alberta. Because when Trump started saying 51st state and he was chiding us and everything, there are people that I worked with. I worked with this acupuncturist, and he's like, this is not such a bad idea. Like less taxes, we could go work there, we could live in New York, or what, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't, if people were going to be honest, they don't think it's a bad idea, right? Because he's a big thinker. But okay, so.
No,
Well,
I
wait,
like that.
yeah.
I would do.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
hang on to that for a bit because you're right. All of these people who go, oh no, elbows up, I'm Team Canada, all that
Yeah.
BS, right? They've got a favorite NFL team. They all watch the freaking Super Bowl. They watch the Grammys every year. They watch whatever is American. That's their big thing. The NHL, which is controlled by a United States company. These people go to, in Winnipeg, for example, this was kind of embarrassing a couple of weeks ago. The Winnipeg Jets are the #1 team in the NHL. And the reason for that is because there's 8 United States born players on the team, including one of the top 5 scorers in the league. They booed the United States national anthem a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't even believe it. I say, wait a minute, hold on. You've got 8 Americans on this team, and you're going to boo their national anthem? Are you out of your minds? These people are absolutely crazy.
Crazy.
Right?
Look,
Right.
we don't even have Vancouver Grizzlies anymore. They're the Memphis Grizzlies. How
Ultimately, Canada and the United States are so tied together, as you say. Where do we go on vacations? It's down 23% tourism. BS. How long is that going to last? This is a fad, just like all of the other virtue signals. It's a fad, right? I mean, here in Winnipeg, people go to Minneapolis. They go to concerts down there. They go watch the Vikings play. They go watch the Minnesota Twins play. It's a 6 or 7 hour drive to get down to Minneapolis. It's no big deal. In Toronto, they go to Buffalo. They watch the Bills games. Vancouver, Seattle, same thing, right? That's what they do. We are tied. And so all of a sudden now we're like, oh, Canada, no. But they won't go see a CFL football game.
The CFL.
That's terrible.
What are you
it's
talking
inferior
about?
game because CFL sucks. Right?
One time, Martin Short years ago made a joke. He was like, something Rough Riders 57, Rough Riders 89. Remember we had 2 Rough Riders somewhere? Yeah.
Well, to be fair, one of the Rough Rider teams had a space between Rough and Riders, and the other one was all.
Oh, okay.
The other one was all one word. So.
But Carney the other day when he was in Europe, hobnobbing with the king and everything, was like, Canada's more European than American. We do have European influence because obviously we're part of the monarchy, but we are also very American in culture too, right? We're very close. So that is a good point. This anti-American sentiment is doing nothing for anybody. Everybody just grow up and let's get along. But before, I want to talk to you about 2 more things. I want to say that, Pierre is going to have to swim upstream a little, right?
What do you think he's doing wrong? Let me ask you that.
I don't think he's okay, because he got a lot of criticism for not doing these big, long podcasts. And I did a very short video just saying, every time I turn around, I see Pierre. I never see him not speaking at a rally, at an event, at a press conference, standing in the cold, talking about what he wants to do, fielding questions from reporters with such patience. And then they'll go, let's say it in French. And then he's like, okay. And then he says the whole answer all over again in French with infinite patience. All the talking points of the conservative, all the campaign points of the conservatives have now been stolen by Carney, to where a French reporter asked him, why don't you just run as a conservative? You're stealing everything from them because you can't come up with your own ideas. And he's had infinite patience, campaigned this much, has been the opposition leader this long. And in comes...
Yeah, but Anita, what's he doing wrong?
Probably nothing.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little bit on that one and say to you that he's not being aggressive enough. He has tempered down his presentation somewhat these past few months. Right now, his handlers are probably telling him, Pierre, people don't like you. There's certain element of people that just they don't like the way you present yourself. You're too aggressive. You're too mean to the reporters. All of that stuff. And we've seen the Apple thing, and we've seen him call out the CBC many, many times. And so they say you got to tone that down a little bit. That is one of the genuine things that people liked. The entire conservative base, in my opinion, liked about Pierre Poilievre is that he was absolutely willing to call these people out because they deserved it first and foremost.
Yeah.
The other thing is he's now coming out a little bit more strongly regarding all of this immigration, right? This illegal immigration, saying we're going to track down these people. But he is not nearly as aggressive about it as he was last summer on a radio interview, which I played on the show last week. He said, do you know the Liberal government lost track of how many illegal immigrants there are in this country? They say there's anywhere between 20 and 500,000 of them. We don't know exactly how many, and we don't even know who they are or where they are, right? So we're going to have to see if we can track down some of those people. Illegal immigration is a big thing he hasn't been talking about.
Yeah,
All he's talking about right now is maybe reducing immigration to a sustainable level and building homes to match the pace of immigration. The Ukraine war is a whole other matter, right? Canada has no skin in this game whatsoever. We don't. We never did. They're not a member of NATO. We don't have any treaties, military treaties with Ukraine. We have no reason to be giving them billions and billions of our dollars. And yet, all of the parties are united on this. And this is where we see a uniparty, except for Maxim Bernier.
Yeah.
Poilievre says, we will fight with Ukraine until the bitter end. No dollars for dictators. Putin is evil. So he's running on that narrative, which is wrong.
Yeah. Now you're making me think. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that right now when you asked me. Yeah.
But the thing is, if he goes, and says what conservatives want to hear, his base, then he sounds too much like Donald Trump, maybe. And he's got to be very careful that the left-wing corporate media is not able to attack him on these things.
Just in such a difficult position. I don't know why he bangs on about Ukraine. Most people are over it. We want that war to end. And why did we give them billions and billions of dollars over the years anyway? I think most people agree. We're tired of it. We want that to end. So say your truth. Come up and say that. So it's funny. You're right that Pierre is backing that. That's not good. I don't like that. And you also have brought up, and he's got to get a bit more aggressive. The things that we liked about him, he's got to, maybe be more forceful about that. But he is in a difficult situation because as a politician, you're trying to please everybody for the votes, right? So he's just, and the issues are controversial. Immigration is controversial. He is probably right now at this crux of not knowing how to play this quite right.
Well, and the way he handles the whole climate change thing too, right? Like the zealotry that comes from the left is absolutely ridiculous. And there are many, many, many scientists out there who say this is all crap. And he is yet to come out and say, and Danielle Smith too, have both yet to come out and say, you know what, this is all just nothing but a green scam. So there's two reasons for that, or possibly two reasons for that. And the first one is they just don't want to upset the left-wing corporate media, because even the ones that ask the tough questions, like Vashi Capellos from CTV, who gets far too much play as far as I'm concerned. They're all climate zealots. They all believe in that net zero philosophy, which is completely flawed and totally wrong, but yet that's what they believe in, right? So they're going to attack Poilievre on that and Smith on that. Or the other reason is they're in on it. They might be actually in on it. This whole green energy thing is worth trillions of dollars worldwide, and maybe they're padding their pockets. I don't know. But it needs to
the
stop.
Broadcasters or who? Like who exactly?
Poilievre and Smith themselves and all of the government people, the bureaucratats. I mean, if they decide they're going to speak up against this whole green initiative thing and that climate change is a pile of caca. They are setting themselves up for a possible huge problem. Right? Possibly. And I don't know exactly what kind of problem here, but I will intimate to say that it could be very dangerous problem. These people are,
they're pleasing somebody.
Elon Musk came on the other day to Joe Rogan, and they were talking about Doge. And Musk was saying, I've really got to watch out that I don't say too much here, because my life could quite literally be on the line. Now, we're talking about a guy who's the richest guy in the world. He's got, I don't know, what is it, $300 billion. And he's got a team of security around him, I'm sure, at all times. And he's talking about the possibility that he could be killed for saying too much regarding what they're finding in USAID and internal revenue and all of the things that they've gone through.
Yeah.
And where do you get these American judges coming out and ruling against the government actually finding all of these billions of dollars in waste and then telling Trump and the administration they have to reverse it because it's unconstitutional, but they don't tell you how?
Yeah.
They're all in on it, right? So this is a massive, massive, massive thing, Anita. And
Yeah, it's
you know,
it's a lot of balls to juggle for somebody because there are a lot of players that we don't really know about. And you make good points about Doge. I literally feel like they're like, okay, we can't be sending money to people who aren't alive. We can't be giving millions of dollars to Eritrea for their tranny program or whatever we're doing. We cannot be doing this, so we have to cut this. And we also have to cut the fat in the government bureaucracy. And so a lot of people think he's cutting the veterans money. He's not cutting money for veterans. He's cutting the government bureaucracy, the staffing around that, useless staff. So I believe they're trying to be on the up and up, but they have the institutions pushing them down. It is quite bizarre. But this also leads me to, let's talk a little bit, because this guy's been everywhere. All of a sudden, Maxim Bernier. I wanted to get your take on Maxim Bernier. We haven't heard from him. If he wanted to chirp up earlier and go, hey, everybody, I'm running. He's not running. He's not actually running, but now he's adding another cog in the wheel to
what do you
Pierre.
mean he's not actually running? What do you mean?
He's not running for prime minister right now.
Oh, he's running for, the PPC. They're
For
in
the
it.
PPC, but he's not running to be the prime minister. He's just sort of getting a little bit more press for the PPC, but he's not put his
He's
hand
not
up to say,
seriously in the race, is what you're
he's
saying.
not in the
right?
race, because I heard him say on that PBD show that he's like, no, well, not this time, but maybe in 2029 I will run. Whatever. I will take it seriously. So he's not doing it now. But so I'm loath to share PBD, but I will.
I like PBD.
He's okay. He pissed me off when he interviewed a sex abuse survivor and then confronted her really badly. I did a video about that. And
I saw that one. Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Immigration.
Okay, so
in Canada, we have mass immigration right now, and that destroying our social fabric. We had more than 1.2 million foreigners coming to our country.
Saw that.
And for a country of 40 million people, that's a lot. Actually, the growth of our population last year was 3.2%, and the average growth of population in the Western countries was 0.2%. And 97% of our population growth is coming from immigration. So if you go like that for a couple of years, that's the replacement, theory, but in practice in Canada. So for him, he's not speaking about that. He's okay with mass immigration like the Liberals. And we are not. We are the only party that is saying we need to have a pause on immigration, a moratorium on immigration, because, that is affecting economically Canadians. Our standard of living is going down. Inflation is up. And we have ghettos in our country. People are not integrating into our society. So it's a big mess, and we need to have that pause. So what I'm telling you is pandering to the ethnic communities like Trudeau. So Poilievre is doing the same game, because in some ridings in Canada, to win and to have a majority, in Toronto, for example, there's a lot of ridings over there, a seat over there, more than in Alberta. So, and that region, there's a lot of immigrants, and they want to have more of their friends coming to Canada. So Poilievre is pandering to them to be sure to win these ridings, knowing that the majority of the population don't want that mass immigration anymore.
He has been on, where did we go? He has been on Alex Jones and Viva Fry and lots of little podcasts and big podcasts. He's been everywhere. And he is going around saying this, but he is carving up Pierre pretty good here. Now, what do you make of the timing of this? Why is he speaking now? The election is imminent. Carney is in, why now? Why is he?
Well, that's exactly why now. It's the election, right? I mean, the thing about Max, and this is what I asked a couple of months ago, is you're always hearing from the Conservatives, whether there's an election campaign or not. Same thing with the Bloc, even the Greens. And okay, I get it. They've got seats in the House of Commons, and so that gives them a little bit more of a voice than the People's Party of Canada that doesn't have any seats yet. But where does Max go when there is no election? He should be speaking all the time, everywhere, all the time, whether there's an election campaign or whether there's not, right? The other thing about Max is that he's a Quebec guy, obviously. And he ran in a by-election in Manitoba a couple of months ago. And he came in second because it's a very conservative area. The Conservatives won by a landslide when Max ran. But during the federal election of 2021, the PPC came in a very strong second, and that was just from some local farm kid who was running for the PPC there. I mean, that kid almost pulled it off. Bernier parachutes himself into this riding thinking he's going to win it, and he does worse than the local kid. I'll tell you why that is. It's because in the West, and this goes back years, I'm not sure if this plays in BC where you are, but definitely in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta, there is I'm not going to say an all-out hatred of Quebecers, but there's definitely a suspicion of Quebecers. And the first thing, especially in a rural area where these people have lived their entire lives and they're used to seeing only their own kind, right? Somebody comes in with this French accent, and he's going to talk about how he's going to get rid of the net zero and all of this. People just don't trust that. They don't buy it. They don't buy it. And I think that's a problem. I think that and again, this is not me trying to be cruel or mean to Max or whatever. It's just, dude, you got to get rid of that incredible French accent that you have. Understanding that you live in Quebec and you speak French probably 90% of the time with the people around you. But the only way to do that, if you want to be serious, is to go live somewhere in Western Canada on the prairies for a couple of years, assimilate yourself into that society, speak nothing but English, and the accent will definitely lessen. And then you might have a chance. And that's something you probably should have done a couple of years ago or sooner if you wanted to be taken seriously in the prairies. Because the thing about the PPC is they are strongest and probably have the best chance to win a seat or two in a place like Manitoba or Saskatchewan or Alberta, where the vote is heavily conservative. Now, what they'll tell you is, well, we're not just getting votes from the Conservative Party. We're also getting votes from, believe it or not, the Liberals and the NDP. And what we're also going for, and I think this is what he told PBD, we're also going for the people who don't vote. Think about, how many, what percentage of the electorate in this country don't vote in any election, federally or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's about 35% of people who they just won't vote. So what he's trying to do is activate those people. Imagine if you could get 35% of those people, the people that don't vote, and then all of a sudden they all come out and vote for you. You win the election, or you place very strongly in the election if 100% of the people vote, which is never going to happen. But that's where he says he's getting his votes from. And I don't see that as reality because, still only 1 or 2% from the PPC, maybe 3% in some cases. In strongholds, and when I say stronghold, I'm speaking relatively, of course, in places like the prairies. And so, the dichotomy here that he is facing is that a French guy, untrusted, goes to his strongest area for votes, and people don't trust him immediately because of his French accent. Haven't got a chance.
Yeah.
He goes to Quebec, and maybe there is a little bit of a hope for the PPC in rural Ontario in some parts, but not that much. Quebec, he can't win his own riding in Beauce. It's his home riding. He's tried it 4 times. He can't do it.
Wow. I mean, I do respect him for speaking out against the mandates in the beginning, but he's not somebody I hear much about, right? He's kind of quiet. And to chirp up now and crap all over Pierre is not doing us any favors because we kind of, we kind of want
They're trying to portray him like what's his name, the guy in the UK, the reform guy.
Oh, not Nigel.
Yeah, Nigel Farage.
Nigel
That's what
Farage, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what Maxime says. I am the Canadian Nigel Farage.
Nigel
He says,
Farage,
no, you're
But
not.
he's
the Nigel.
going around doing all these big podcasts criticizing the person that a lot of Canadians want. We don't want more of the same, right? It's quite clear that we don't want more another more years of Liberals. We are done. And when he's chirping up going, he is not the real conservative, blah blah blah, it's like, oh, did you have to open your mouth up now? Can't you be quiet?
I think the problem with Max and his party is that, and I had Jason on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about it because he's running.
Jason Levine?
Yeah, no. Levine. He was. Yeah, I'm sorry, and he's running for the PPC in Alberta right now. And I like Jason. I respect Jason. He's a good guy. And he told me some of these same talking points from the PPC. And you know what? Look, I look at the platform of the People's Party of Canada, and I like it. I do. Yeah. But the problem, I think, with the PPC in many ways is the same for all politicians, is that they cannot seem to get out of their own way. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And in this case, Max is a problem out west because of the French accent, maybe. And once again, I mean, there's some people who are going to probably hate on me for that, but also the fact that the people, there's a certain element of PPC supporters, we call them the PPC bros. Mm-hmm. And so you go on social media and you talk about the PPC bros, or you just talk about politics in general and you say, well, the PPC doesn't really have a chance to win, so you got to vote Conservative, especially now with the Liberals showing up so well and all that. And the PPC bros will come on and they will attack you. It's probably happening right now in the comments. I haven't looked, but it's probably like all the PPC bros going to speak up and say, oh, it's not true, blah, blah. And they'll get mean and aggressive and rude and hateful. And that does not win friends and influence people. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. So in that way, they hurt themselves, right? And I understand their frustration. I get it, like if they haven't been able to break through yet. But calling people names is not going to do you any favors. So just don't do it. It gets to the point where I just say, well, look, okay, if you're a PPC bro, you're just like all the other PPC bros, and just move on. I'm not interested. I don't want to hear what you have to say because you're going to be rude, mean, and cutting, and I'm not interested. I think all of us have pretty much had it with that kind of rhetoric in the past 5 years, right?
Yeah, like I almost feel like him speaking up is not really helping things now.
Well, what other podcast was he on down there in the States? He was on PD.
Alex
was he on
Jones.
Alex Jones? Was he on
Jimmy
Jimmy
Dore.
Dore?
My friend Jimmy, yeah.
Yeah, you're on Jimmy Dore. That's cool. I thought that was great.
I know. Hey, I don't know. I was so nice. They're just really nice people, and they're just so gracious to have me on. Half the time I get nervous and fumble, right? But like he
do great.
Thanks. He was on there and he talks a lot of sense, right? Like he's a good speaker, Maxime. He's not a stupid person.
No.
And we don't want this much immigration. We want our healthcare system to be better, maybe something more European, a blend between socialist healthcare and American healthcare. We want, he's got good ideas on those things, and those are things he's talking about. So sometimes I say, you and Pierre should get together and form a coalition. I will not do that.
I will not do that. I will not let that happen. We will never. Don't see eye to eye. That's not a real conservative party.
Well, then he's never going to get anywhere. He's going to be doing this forever. Like,
here's the thing about
ally.
Max. I like Max. And I've said that over and over again. I like him. I like his policies. But can you name somebody else in the People's Party? Anybody?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
Okay. So here's the problem. Max runs the Maxim Party, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
He's the dude. He is the whole party. Yeah.
Right. And so the other problem for the PPC is, what would the PPC be without Max Bernier, right?
They won't exist.
But he's also their biggest problem. So in this way, the PPC would not exist without him. So like what did Trump do in this last election? He didn't go it alone. He brought in Tulsi Gabbard, right?
It's
he brought
fantastic. That's right.
in, Kash Patel. He brought in all of these amazing people, like RFK Jr., all of
So
these.
smart.
So it turned into the super league,
dream
right?
team.
Or the justice.
So
Yeah.
we do the same thing here. Get the strongest people, whether we've heard their names or not. We got strong people. We have Melissa Lantsman, Michelle Freire. The Conservative Party has strong people. PCP. PCP is a drug.
Little angel dust there. That's dangerous drug too.
The PPC. Oh God, is they've got strong people too. Get your best and your brightest and come together. We don't want to be dicking around. Look, we dicked around with Jagmeet and Trudeau all these years, right? These two dum-dums. We don't want any more dum-dums.
I think that Max, and here's the problem too, right? Like Pierre and Max, they have publicly feuded with each other, called each other World Economic Forum members, right? They have. So I'm not sure if that ship hasn't sailed yet. I don't know that it could ever manage to get back together. I believe it could and should. Yeah. They have a lot of ideas, a lot of great ideas, the PPC. Yeah. And if the Conservatives adopted some of those ideas, who knows? It's about uniting the right. And all Pierre would have to do, in my opinion, is to say, look, Max, maybe we get back together here. Yeah, we're gonna look at your platform and we're gonna give me your top 3 platforms that you want us to incorporate, and we will do that. And I will promise you a key cabinet position when you win your seat as a Conservative.
Yeah. They should do a big podcast together or something. Bring them in a room together. People will become friends. Podcasting makes friends. Okay.
I don't see how going on these big American podcasts is going to help Max.
Yeah.
And that's what Patrick Pett David was saying about Poilievre. Like, well, you got to come on the Joe Rogan. He said, no. What Pierre needs to do is come on our shows. Right?
Yeah. That would be good. I would love to interview Pierre and Maxime. Maxime was putting it out there, so I could have. I saw that there was on X. If you want to interview him, contact his press people. And I was like, hey, well, maybe I will, right? But I didn't. But maybe there's still time, and hopefully I could talk to Pierre one day. I think he talks to a lot of people. He's done a lot of podcasts. It can't hurt him to go on Joe Rogan. So if he gets the invite, he should take it. Without question, doesn't matter. And
now, do you think that would hurt him in Canada, or would that help him?
No, we would love that,
because Rogan they would somehow try and tie it to Trump, and then next thing you know, Poilievre is a Trump guy, and that would sink him in Canada for whatever reason. So. The majority of Canadians have got Trump derangement syndrome, which is ridiculous, right?
It's so ridiculous, but I don't think it could hurt. I think, and Joe Rogan, I think doesn't get a lot of respect. He's a very good interviewer.
Yeah.
He is very informed. And I mean, to drive a conversation like that and be that entertaining for that long is astounding. And he's very, very fair and very good at it. And you can do yourself no harm by going on that show.
It's just a great conversation, right? There's never any dead spots. Did you see Bill Murray on Rogan?
No, I didn't. No.
Bill Murray was on there a couple of weeks ago, and when Rogan starts his show, he doesn't just say, "Okay, welcome, we've got Bill Murray." They just start talking, right?
Yeah,
they filming, and so Bill says, "You know what? I have to say, I'd heard your name before, but I had no idea who you were, what you looked like."
What?
And I got to say, I'm a little bit nervous to be here, right? Like Bill said, and Joe said, "I'm a huge fan." And they made a connection over a picture that Rogan had up in his outer office. Mm-hmm. And it was the guy from that Vegas book.
The guy who wrote Leaving Las Vegas or something?
Not Leaving Las Vegas. It's... I'm drawing a blank on this one. You guys know in the comments? Vegas.
Oh God, the comments. You know what? I haven't been keeping up. There's so many comments. I can't believe it. I actually wish that we could have a call-in. I think you can do call-ins on Rumble, right? Because I actually love hearing from the people. There's so many comments. I don't see any. You know what? I'll find it after.
They will.
Pierre, look at this. Somebody said Pierre could come on Anita's channel. My little firecracker. Yeah. That would be great. No, but yeah, you're right.
Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter
Oh,
S.
him, that
Thompson.
big druggie. Yeah.
Fear and Loathing in Las
Yeah,
Vegas.
yeah.
And so anyway, Rogan had this photo, or had a hat or something that was Hunter S. Thompson's. And Bill Murray was very close friends with Hunter S. Thompson before he died, in the last few years before he died. And so that's how they made their connection. And the next thing is they're telling these stories and having this great conversation for 3 hours. So you're right when you say Rogan is a great interviewer. And one of the best things I think any great interviewer does is they put their guest at ease within the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Right? They just, for some, like the interviewer or the interviewee finds something in the interviewer they really like, and they just start warming up and opening up. And that's when you get your best interviews.
And that's, I mean, look at us. We've got, when I texted you this morning, I'm like, do you want to come on for 45 minutes?
You
right?
texted me last night at midnight. It wasn't this morning. It was last night at midnight.
Yeah. I was midnight?
I was just going to bed, and I saw Anita text me. Oh my God! Okay, I'll get her tomorrow.
So it must have been 2 a.m. my time. I actually went to a party.
No, it was 10 o'clock at night. Because you're 2 hours behind. It was midnight for me.
And I thought, because when I got home, I saw the Chandra Arya thing. I saw these other things, and I just wanted to Maxim, and I wanted to get your take because it's been a while since we've talked.
Yes.
And then I always go, do you think we could do this for 45 minutes? But look, people are watching and engaging. It's really is a beautiful thing, like this new way that we're doing things. Like you and I you did a radio show every day for corporate radio. I did a newscast every day for global news, right? Like we don't come from this relaxed thing. You would interview someone for 3 minutes. You package 2-minute stories on the news, right? That's how life goes. But I find that when we do these things, and if you get a guest on, a politician, I think it's hard to fake 3 hours. It's hard to fake an hour.
Yeah, you can't. It needs to be genuine. There's a guy. Did Pierre have a rally today?
He had a rally today, and the pleb was there.
The pleb.
Doing a giant live stream, which is also very awesome because we back in our day, we'd send a camera, right? They'd get in, they'd hook up their XLRs and get the good audio and whatever. The pleb is running around with a battery charger and his friggin' iPhone, getting good stuff. But we would send people with the best of the best equipment. You'd send a field producer. You'd send everybody, right? But with no money, the dude is running around with his phone. And do you understand what a mind-blowing thing that is for me, coming from that one world where we'd have the press pass and you treated like gold when you go into these events. But now nobody cares that the media is covering that. They want to see the pleb run around with his iPhone.
You know what's funny? Funny you should bring that up, because I remember every city has got their yearly festival, right? It's the PNE in Vancouver and the Klondike Days in Edmonton, and Winnipeg has something called the Red River Exhibition.
Oh, yeah.
And so every year, the media would set up Media Row. So you've got all of the radio stations and the TV stations and whatnot. And most days you're doing the live broadcast because, something might be going on. And so I was at the Red River X in 1992. And I think at the same time, or 93, and there was a Pink Floyd concert at the stadium that night. And at that time, the Red River X was on the Winnipeg Stadium ground. So it was like electric. Or maybe it was the Stones. Either way, it was a big classic rock band. And the CBC showed up to cover it. Now, when private radio at that time would go out to broadcast live, I had a little UHF transmitter pack and a battery pack and a couple of microphones in a bag that I was carrying over my shoulder. I didn't have anybody with me setting up signage. I didn't have any of that. It was just me and whatever equipment. And then the CBC shows up in their big van, and 8 guys got out of the CBC van. Cameras, microphones, producers coming out telling them where to put it, right? And then finally, the host steps out of the van. And she was like, you know, one of those, and I just thought, and I think I did the live description of it on my show, and I've hated the CBC for 40 years, right? So I was going, oh, look, the CBC's here. And so I gave the same description on my show that very day that I just gave to you guys now, right? That and the arrogance that they had compared to, you know, private radio plebes who were carrying bags on their shoulders with no assistance, no signage, no nothing. We're just out there doing what we can. And the CBC comes out with 8 people.
Yeah.
And they're all making like the top end union wages, right? What did that live broadcast cost them? I don't know. Thousands and thousands of dollars. And there I was like, hey, maybe I can get Pink Floyd to come on my show today.
Yeah, I know. Too much money and no talent. And those days I got to go now.
But all of that, Anita, was for like a 30 to 60 second clip, like you point out.
Oh.
Right? And for the CBC. And me back then, I was on the air for 4 hours doing that.
You would do a remote. You were doing a remote right from the festival, which is setting up and broadcasting from there. They sent all those people out for a little story. Yeah, they do that. They do that. Yeah, that's just like they got money to lose, right? So it's ridiculous.
They don't care about it because it's public dollars,
it's
right?
Public money, and it breeds arrogance. Like for a short period of time, I worked at CTV in downtown Vancouver. They were the most arrogant people. It was just they were so full of themselves, and I was like, you know that nobody's watching. Like nobody watches.
It's true.
Because at the time I worked at Global too. I was freelancing all over the place, and Global was the powerhouse, and CTV was just a drop in the bucket. But they were the most arrogant people.
Where does that attitude come from?
Yeah.
Where does that attitude come from?
They're downtown and they're on the air, and people sort of kind of goad over them, or they have this sort of, I don't know, it kind of breeds arrogance for some reason. Although the global anchors from the back in the day were not arrogant. I want to say that.
I will give you a simple line from a Seinfeld episode that describes this perfectly. This was a cab driver speaking to George, who was riding in the back of the cab, and all he said was, "Smugness is not a good quality."
It is not a good quality.
Smugness is
and
not
on that note, now we've gone 90 minutes. We've put up some of the comments. I think these are all your people, right?
Are they?
They're all saying hi, and they all have wonderful comments. If I ever knew how to do a thing where you could call in, we should do a call-in show, especially as don't you love call-in radio, Shadoe?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do it. We could do it right now.
On how do we
if we wanted to?
Well, we'll figure it out.
No, we can. It's just that it would be completely and totally cold.
It would be cold because you know how it is and you do it in broadcast. We have a producer that vets the call, so you'd answer the phone and go, "What's your question, please?" And then if they sounded mental, we wouldn't put them on the air.
That's right.
But here it's just us, so we're going to have to field all the calls. But it's important as the election's coming closer. Like I really love hearing people's voices.
Person's mental, then we would just.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day. Heavy breathing and all that. You're like, what's your question for the veterinarian? Like, because we'd be doing things like that. But it was funny.
I want to know: does a cat really have 9 lives? Thank you for your call, sir.
Yeah,
we really appreciate you.
Thank you to everyone who watched. I think this was a pretty fun show.
How many people have you got live right now? What does it say?
10, 12.
Nice.
1,000.
Nice. That's over 1,000 live viewers. Cool. Don't forget to like and share this, you guys. Get this out there to people.
Like and share. I always forget to say that. And
it's important.
Dudes, anytime anybody wants to do a call in, let's sort of make this happen. Maybe Shadoe and I can figure it out, because it's a pretty fun thing to do on a Sunday. It's the Sunday Night 6 show. Okay,
the Sunday Night 6 show. I was trying to give myself a 3-day weekend this weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't have to do it every Sunday, but some Sunday.
No,
Some
and
Sunday,
on
okay.
Friday, because I was working all day Friday doing other things for the
Okay,
show and
yeah,
for my
I-
website and whatnot. And so I thought, I'll just kind of be able to relax. And then Anita with her text at midnight last night. Yeah. I said, well, you know what? It's actually, it's a good thing we did this today because there was an election called that is very newsworthy. And I'm glad that we got a chance to do this again because we don't do it enough.
We don't do it enough. But
Yep.
thank you to everyone who watched. We'll be back. You can't get rid of us. And so we will see you all next time. Thank you for participating and watching. Thank you, Shadoe, for your time on a Sunday. And now let's go eat dinner. Okay?
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Bye, everyone. Thank
See you
you.
guys.